Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Alright, now here I am continuing on with these obscure 2000s Disney films. Alright, and next up, this is going to be a review for Atlantis, The Lost Empire. So, so of course, like, this is a pretty infamous movie among the Disney community. Because, yeah, this film, like, it's not really, like, talked about a whole lot today. Like, people really do, like, seem to just, really not really, discuss this film, and yeah, it is, like, not really, like, really, like, that, known amongst, like, a lot of, like, big Disney fans. But yeah, the ones that do know it, like, don't really seem to be the biggest fans of this movie. Yeah, this movie, like, of course, this movie was known to really, like, not really be, like, a really big hit financially or critically for that matter. Yeah, critics really weren't that big of fans of this film, and yeah, this film really did not really do very well financially. Like, yeah, this film really was like a pretty big like a box office failure. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this was like a very infamous movie among the Disney community. Yeah. And this movie also was like when Disney was really like trying to kind of do something different with their films and kind of like make films that really like were kind of like more like adult oriented in a sense and not really like geared like totally towards like a younger demographic. Yeah, this film, like Disney really was like attempting to really do something different with the film and try to kind of like be more adult. Like with this film, they tried to like go down kind of like a more kind of a action in kind of film where like people are getting killed and all that. But yeah, for a Disney film, this probably is not like the kind of story you really want to do a film about. And because, yeah, there's just been like a whole bunch of like Atlantis tales that have been told over the years, and yeah, there's been like other movies and stuff really just set around like the Lost World of Atlantis and that stuff. So yeah, so this is so this is kind of like similar to like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because yeah, this really is probably like not really like a story that you really would want to tell like as a Disney film. Because I just don't really think that like this kind of story really is like really like the one that really is kind of is like meant for Disney and stuff. I really think like other studios would probably like be better fit to really make a movie like about like Atlantis and as than Disney really would. That's like how I feel about it. Yeah, yeah. I just really feel that this really was not really the right choice for Disney to really do a movie on. Yeah, and this movie, I mean, gosh, I mean, this was a movie that I really did like. I enjoyed it enough when I was a kid. Like, I actually did see this movie a few times in the theaters. So yeah, I did overall like. I enjoyed this movie when I was like younger. But yeah, I really like stopped watching it for a while. Like I hadn't seen this movie in like quite a long time, ever since I was a kid. Yeah, but then yeah, then I gave it a watch again to make this review, and yeah, I can really kind of like see why people really weren't too nuts about this film. I mean, just as I was watching this film, I just was watching it, and I just really felt like pretty bored watching it. Like just this, it just seemed like just for the hour and a half this film lasts, it just seems like all I was really watching, and for all that time, was just people talking. That's really all it felt like. It just felt like people were really talking. Like the main character of the film, Milo, like all he really does is just like talk, and he's just like saying a whole bunch of stuff about Atlantis and all that stuff. And then, yeah, as he's like journeying off to find Atlantis with the group that he's with, with yeah, it just is like he's like surrounded by all these other people, and pretty much all they're doing is talking as well. Like it just seems like we're not really like getting any like sort of like really big action as we're watching this film. We're just like watching them just really talking and journeying just to find Atlantis. And even when they get to Atlantis, all they're really doing is just like talking some more and just walking and through the city and all that. So Yeah, it just really seems like pretty boring when we're just like watching a film where most of it is really just talking and not all that much action. Like we do like hit like some action throughout the film, but even then, like the action scenes, they just really seem like very short. Like maybe like for a minute we get to see like some action, whether it's like them like running from like explosions or stuff like that, and even like in the final battle, it kind of like leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest. So yeah, the problems with this movie really are pretty apparent, and they are like very easy to spot and see. So yeah, I really can understand like why the film really was not really a, a big critical or financial success, because yeah, the problems are like very obvious throughout the film. So so yeah, I mean maybe like once in a while like you do like get like an interesting scene that does kind of like contribute to the story, like that scene with the king dying. Like that is like kind of an interesting scene. It really does like really like have a big contribute to the story with like why like the Atlanteans are like the way that they are in this film and stuff. But yeah, the main characters, they're just like really not interesting. The villains aren't interesting, and the story, like there is like a lot of potential for the story, but it just feels like there's like all that potential just feels very wasted throughout the film. So yeah, so the film really doesn't have a really big fan base. I really don't think it's horrible. Like I can't really say that there's like really like anything like really like absolutely horrible about the film. Like it's not horrible, but it just is like pretty boring because you're just like really you're just sitting through like all these characters just talking when you could really be seeing like something much more interesting going on. So yeah, so I just really don't know what to say about the film. It's not really like all that good, but I really don't think it's like really like the big like absolute fail that some people try to say that it is. Like it is like it is an okay film, but just when you really do think about it, just we could have really been seeing a lot more from this. So yeah. So it really is just kind of like a film that really is just like just there. Nothing that really is like absolutely horrible about it, but yeah, you can really understand like why it's like not really regarded amongst like a lot of the classics that really were coming out during this time from Disney. Well, at least a lot of the ones that came out before. Like this film was like the first like hand-drawn animated film following the Disney Renaissance. And yeah, and as far as it goes, yeah, it was a pretty big letdown. And plus, yeah, the animation style, it is kind of like going along with what I was saying earlier on about like how this story really isn't meant for Disney. The animation just really doesn't seem like a Disney style animation. It kind of seems like animation that you would see like from somewhere like DreamWorks or even like a secondary animation studio. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff about this film that really just doesn't really make it seem like a Disney film. So yeah, so it really does have a lot going against it, but at the same time, it could have been a lot worse, I guess. So yeah, so I would probably give this film probably around like I don't know, 2.25 stars out of 4. Yeah. So yeah, so the movie overall, it does have like a pretty decent cast. Like you do have like Michael J. Fox as the main character Milo. You have James Garner as the villain. You have people like David Ogden Stiers, Jim Varney, Corey Burton, Leonard Nimoy. So a decent cast to it, but yeah, just yeah, when you can't really get that much interest into the characters, it really just this doesn't really seem like the voice talent really did pay off. So yeah, so it was like pretty unfortunate. All right, so yeah, I think I kind of like riffed on about that. So yeah, let me just talk about the premise of the film. So as the film opens up, like it really is like very long ago, and it shows like there's a tsunami that is headed towards the city of Atlantis after some sort of explosion. And as the Atlanteans are evacuating, the queen is like lifted up into like this floating crystal, and and shows that like her daughter Kita is like really calling for her, doesn't want her to leave. But yeah, the king does end up like holding on to her as her mother is gone. Yeah, Yeah, and then it shows the crystal like merged with the queen, and then like created a dome that was preserving the city, and Atlantis ended up sinking beneath the waves. Then it cuts to like close to 8,000 years later in the year 1914, and then yeah, then we see the main character Milo Thatch is, and it shows that he's like a linguist at the Smithsonian Institutional, and he really is like very determined to really try to discover Atlantis, but yeah, he doesn't have anybody to really fund his journey in order to do it, so he can. But then, after he eventually does discover the existence of the Shepherd's Journal, which is a a manuscript that actually does like contain the directions to Atlantis, this this then after like his proposal to search for it is rejected by the museum board. Then Helga Sinclair then introduced Milo to an eccentric millionaire, Preston B. Whitmore, who apparently actually did know Milo's grandfather. Because yeah, this movie like talks about how like Milo's parents died when he was very young, but then his grandfather took him in, and yeah, and his grandfather was pretty much the same kind of person that Milo was, and Milo really did take after his grandfather. Yeah, but then yeah. Yeah, it showed that then that Whitmore funded a successful effort to retrieve the journal, to repay like a debt that he made to Milo's grandfather. Yeah, and then he then ended up recruiting Milo to decipher the journal and join an expedition to discover Atlantis. So then Milo then joined like like the a whole crew on the voyage to discover Atlantis, which was headed by Commander Rourke, and Helga was also part of the crew. And yeah, there were also like other people amongst the crew, like uh, Vinny, who was a demolitions expert, Moliere, or Mole as they referred to him, who was a geologist. Yeah, it showed their medical supervisor, Dr. Sweet, yeah, their mechanic, Audrey, their radio operator, Packard, and like their mess cook, Cookie. Yeah, yeah, and it showed that like they all kind of like had their like a separate personnel that had like their own like uh, uh unique personalities to them. Like, yeah, Mole was kind of like the crazy one. Like the reason they called him Mole was because like he like kind of like was very acted like a mole. He would always like dig underground and stuff, because he's just like so obsessed with geology. And yeah, and it showed that like Vinny was just like he was always talking about like demolition and all that other stuff, and yeah, and they all like just had their own like uh, uh usual personalities. Well, yeah, they're all their unique personalities. Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, then as they set out in their submarine that was known as Ulysses, they, then they eventually ended up like being attacked by uh, the by a mechanical Leviathan that apparently was the guard of the Atlantis entrance, and yeah, the Ulysses ended up being destroyed, but yeah, a handful of survivors remained, which were basically like Milo and everybody that I had already talked about. Yeah, but then yeah, then eventually they were able to go through like discover a cavern, and just like were able to travel through a dormant volcano, and they eventually then came across Kita, who was like still young. She looked to probably be like in her looked like to be in her 20s, but of course like she was obviously much older. But yeah, she was still like still looked very young. Like she didn't even like grow that much older, or compared to like when we saw her at the beginning of the movie. And Milo then like realized that like Kita and the other Atlanteans like they don't really remember their written language, since like their society languished, but they did understand English due to like spoken Atlantean being like basis for many different modern languages. And eventually, Kita introduced Milo and uh, Rourke and like some other crew members to her father. But yeah, the father really, like the king, really wasn't didn't really like anybody coming to Atlantis, and he just like ordered them to leave. But he agreed to let them stay overnight so they could get their gear packed up. Yeah, but then yeah, Kita then like against the king's wishes, still like enlisted Milo to really help regain Atlantis' old glory, and eventually like she ended up leading him under to an underwater mural in a sunken part of the city, and then Milo like learned that at the heart of Atlantis actually does provide the people there with longevity and actually powered their devices through like the small crystals that they like wear around their neck. Yeah. But then yeah, then Milo then eventually discovered that the shepherd's journal was actually missing a page which contained that information. Yeah, but then yeah, when Milo like ended up returning back to the surface, then he discovered that Rourke rev- had the missing page, and like this whole thing was actually just to um take like the treasure from Atlantis, and really just yeah, his intent was to really just wanting to steal the heart and basically just destroy the city. Because yeah, if the heart ends up being taken, like it will actually destroy the people in Atlantis. Yeah, yeah. But then yeah, then after like Rourke and the crew ended up capturing Milo and Kita, then yeah, they ended up going to the king demanding to know where the heart is, and yeah, Rourke even ended up uh, fatally assaulting the king. Yeah, but then yeah, then he ended up discovering that the heart was actually beneath the palace, and he saw a giant crystal well, there. But yeah, the as uh, Rourke, Helga, Milo, and Kita were like they're observing it, as it like ended up detecting a threat. But then yeah, then it ended up just merging with Kita, and Kita basically like went through the same thing that her mother did at the start of the film. Yeah, it ended up just merging with her, and yeah, then eventually Rourke just ended up taking Kita with him, and then his intent was to sell her back up at the surface. Yeah, and then it showed that like a Vinny, Audrey, Mole, and yeah, all the other crew members I have mentioned before, like they were like with the Rourke at first, but then eventually like when Milo like just told everybody that like if the heart is removed, the Atlanteans will die. Then that's when like everybody realized what they were doing was wrong, and then yeah, they refused to help Rourke and just stayed behind with Milo. Yeah. Then as Rourke, Helga, and the rest of the soldiers were leaving for the surface, then as Doctor Sweet was tending to the king. Yeah, the Doctor Sweet then just told Milo that he was bleeding internally and he really couldn't do anything else to help him. But then, yeah, the king then was just explaining to Milo that, like, that, like, what happened to Kita and her mother was because of what he did, because he was actually the one that caused the explosion that we saw at the beginning of the film that led to the death of his wife. And he told Milo that, like, the crystal needs a royal host when the city is in danger. So then he gave his crystal to Milo and just begged Milo to save Atlantis and his daughter. So then, yeah, Milo and the others then just rallied up with the Atlanteans, and then they were able to activate their machinery, and they pursued Rourke and the rest of the crew. Yeah, yeah. And then as they were battling with Rourke, Helga, and the rest of the crew, Rourke and Helga ended up like having a fallout during their battle after he attempted to just sacrifice Helga, and eventually Rourke ended up just throwing Helga into the volcano. But as she was dying, as Milo like went after Rourke, where Helga ended up like shooting the airship that was containing Kita's crate, and then as Rourke and Milo were fighting, then Milo then was able to grab a piece of so the glass that was actually crystal charged, and then he was able to slash Rourke with it, and that ended up transforming Rourke into just a crystal statue, and then he ended up being disintegrated after getting struck. Then the ship ended up crash landing on the volcano and awakening it, and as lava was starting to erupt from it, then Milo and everybody else then like flee back to Atlantis, taking Kita with them. Kita was still merged with the crystal at that point, but then Kita then rose into the sky, and then awoken the ancient stone guardians, and then they were able to do what like happened at the beginning of the film, like raise the flooded portion into the dome, like protecting the city from the lava flow, and then the crystal then like brought Kita back down to Milo out of like the trance that she was in. That reunited Milo and Kita, and yeah, and then later on, like as like everybody was getting ready to go back up to the surface, Milo decided to stay with and now that they were in love, and then the rest like returned to the surface. Like Milo said goodbye to everybody, and then they said they would keep the Adventures in Atlantis secret to preserve the safety. But then it showed like Whitmore knew the truth, but it was only because of pictures that were taken. And then the film ended, and it just showing like I guess in Atlantis, a Milo and a Kita then just made the king into one of the stone guardians, and he rose up into the sky with the rest of them, and then then it just showed then like it's slowly panning back, just showing all the city of Atlantis, this and stuff, and that's how it ended. So so like I said, I mean, there's really like not a whole lot in the film, like most of the film really is just like Milo and the rest of the crew really just talking and just journeying off to find like the city of Atlantis and learning the truth about it. So there's not really like a whole lot of action. Like I said, like we do get like bits and pieces of it throughout the film, but it doesn't really last very long and stuff. But like I said, it's not really like absolutely horrible. Like there's nothing in it that really just make it like truly bad. Like it just gets kind of boring at times, but at the same time, like it does still like do like some other things. Like in the film, like we really see like between like the romance between or well, not really romance, but the connection between Milo and Akita as they hug, and like nothing happens like where they kiss or get married or anything. So so it does at least do something different like that. And plus, now, if you do watch this film, like if you are seeing it like with a big screen TV, like some of the imagery will look like really good. Like that scene where Kita does emerge with the crystal, like that does look really good watching it. So so a lot of the like imagery in Atlantis, like it does look pretty good. So if you're watching it like on a big screen TV, like that imagery will look really good. So so it does like at least like have some stuff going for it. But like I said, I can definitely see why the film really was not really like that big of a hit financially or critically, even with audiences. So so like I said, not horrible, but just there's just like not really a whole lot going for it. So so like I said, I give the film 2.25 stars out of 4. So it's not really a classic, and so so if you're really wondering whether or not this film really is something like for as a must see, I wouldn't really like say that. Like if you're looking like really for a true classic, I wouldn't really recommend seeing this film. So so that's my take on it. So like I said, like it's not horrible. Like there's definitely been like worse Disney films than this, but it's still like it is still pretty boring. So so I guess that's the best way I can put it. All right. So I guess that's all I really have to say about it. All right. So this does it for my review of Atlantis: The Lost Empire. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.